Hey, welcome everybody to another edition of Ask Ralph the Evaluator, and I'm Ralph the Evaluator. Today's question came from one of our book club participants, and the question is really a good one, and it's something that I've encountered several times when trying to evaluate complex interventions using a systems approach is what do we do if leadership's not on board with the evaluation approach? First thing I would say is don't fight it. Number one, always give the client what it is that they want. So we have to start there. And normally what the client or the principal investigator or whoever leadership is of the particular initiative, what they want is to meet at a minimum the funding requirements. So in the case of a Center for Translational Research that I was evaluating, complex intervention by every definition, lots of moving parts that are interdependent and have to work together. But yet the funding, the National Institute of Health, the funder was requiring logic models. So the PI wants logic models, you got to give them logic models. So, you don't want to say, hey, that approach that they're suggesting is bad, so therefore substitute it with the systems. You still have to meet that requirement of the funder. And that will already make leadership feel a little bit better. So then the question is, if we're doing something that the funder requires but we know isn't maybe the best evaluation, how do we subtly start to introduce the systems thinking evaluation concepts so that leadership will get on board? And in the book I call this subliminal evaluation. And so what I do is I don't talk systems, I don't talk systems language or anything like that. What all I do is I will look at workflows that are out there that are existing between components, and you'll have a pretty good understanding of what those workflows are if you're involved in the project. And you just look for a simple place where maybe two components are that without engaging them in a long process of defining the standard operating procedures, that these two groups are communicating at this particular point in time. And these two groups are these two components of the intervention. And at that point, you just maybe apply something simple like a feedback loop, and you evaluate it from that standpoint. So is the feedback loop closed? And if it's closed, okay, how is the information being perceived? Is it perceived as credible? Is it perceived as relevant? Is the information coming sufficiently frequent? Is it timely? Those kinds of basic criteria in evaluating a feedback loop. And then once you've done that, you can provide that specific little piece of information back to leadership to say, hey, I noticed here that, right here where these two groups or these two components of the intervention are interacting, it seems to be failing. And this is what I've been able to pinpoint as the reason, and here's my recommendation for making that change. So, hey, somebody needs to respond to the email within, 2 days, or, they put a lot of information in this particular email, and nobody can make heads or tails of it because it's too much information. So could you work on maybe just streamlining that? Or the information's not coming from someone that's deemed credible. So we need somebody else to be able to provide that information. So just something simple like that. And leadership will be able to relate to that. I've never had a problem with something like that. And they go like, oh, that seems fairly simple to implement. And normally it is fairly simple to implement. So that can start to build confidence. And I'll do that. In fact, I did that for several months, and just providing this near real-time feedback based on some simple system concepts. And that was advantageous for a number of reasons for leadership, because they were able to act on that information relatively quickly. It didn't pile up right into a bunch of recommendations that are at a year-end report. And sometimes when they're in a year-end report, number one, it's just too much information to filter through. But number two is that the information may no longer be relevant, right, at the end of the year. They could have made a change much earlier. So leadership appreciates that. And then, so you just kind of subtly introduced a concept here or there, nothing too overwhelming, and you slowly get their buy-in. And then at some point, that opportunity is going to present itself where you can say, I was applying some kind of system thinking concepts here, and I think we might be able to do this a little more broadly, maybe across the other components of the intervention, but it's going to require a little bit more work. In other words, detailing those workflows and how they interact. And that seems to be a good way to approach it. I call that subliminal evaluation around the systems thinking, but that seems to be a really good way to do it. And I think someone in the work group called it small wins. And yeah, it is basically a small win, but again, not couched in systems terms, just very quietly, we just looked at where these groups are interacting, and here's something that we can do to change it. Now, we know from a systems standpoint that that's, evaluating a feedback loop that's related to interdependencies and so forth, but we wouldn't use that language. We just don't want to turn people off with that. So again, just kind of quietly going about your business and doing something low cost, simple, and that the leadership will see benefit from. And that is a way that I've seen that starts to build the culture. And as evidence of that, 2 years later when we were resubmitting for that Center for Translational Research, the systems part became fully funded and was an integral part of the evaluation. So leadership can and will change their mind. I'm certain of that, because they will see the power of it, and the recommendations that come from systems are far more meaningful because they relate to the actual design of the intervention. If intervention's designed to interact with each other, different components are designed to interact with each other, then we should be evaluating those interactions. And people that have information, leadership that has information on those interactions, are appreciative of that. And these people aren't stupid. They're going to realize that that is value added, and they will eventually come around and say, yeah, let's pursue that line of evaluation. So again, thank you for the question. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed the answer and found the answer helpful. And I would encourage you to, again, sign up for one of our book clubs. And you just go to justevaluation.com. That's justevaluation, one word, .com. And you can go to the little menu on the book, and you'll see the book club RSVP there if you'd like to join. So again, and also, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to this YouTube channel, it would also be appreciated. Thanks, and I'll look forward to getting your next question.